right? This is why one of the things, if you want to really get good at something, people will put themselves into highly competitive situations where they're competing against people who are really good, because that forces you to perform at your best, and it challenges you to learn more quickly, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that you have to develop some sort of objective set of standards by which you measure the skills across your distributed organization if you're doing this work in a distributed way. We've run into this where we've done assessments of teams across multiple regions and been amazed at the fact that there seems to be an equal number of experts in different groups, in spite of the fact that the most senior person in one group has 5 years experience and the most senior person in another group has 25 years experience, right? But still people are rating themselves experts because they're rating themselves, again, against their peers, okay? And this is not bragging or anything. It's just a natural human tendency. Okay, so something as a manager that you have to be ready to deal with, because if you don't, you're going to have these skewed evaluations. Okay. All right. Now another thing to touch on here related to organization and organizing a testing team, participation of non-testers. So project managers, programmers, business experts, domain experts, IT people, other people outside of the test team getting involved. There's nothing wrong with having such people participate, and in some cases it's absolutely necessary for very specialized types of applications or to do user acceptance tests and so forth. But I think it's important to keep in mind that while these people might bring a certain set of skills, there's also a set of skills that they don't have, that testers would have. For example, writing a bug report, documenting a test case, isolating a bug across different environments, those sort of things, they will tend to not have a good understanding of that. And so, just again, you want to organize in a way that is going to provide some kind of support to the non-testers that are involved in testing, so that the testing work that they do and the deliverables that they produce can actually be profitably utilized. It will be very frustrating to these non-testers if they get involved and what they do gets thrown away or ignored because nobody can figure out how to get value from it, because nobody did figure out how to get value from it beforehand. Okay, now this issue of bringing in a particular set of skills brings us to the next point here, the issue of specialized teams. This is an organizational option that we have as test managers. We can organize the team based on different areas of specialization. Okay, so I can do my task analysis to identify the key skills as before for the skills assessment. But instead of trying to diffuse skills evenly across the team, I group people together in specialized areas, and I have them develop a great deal of expertise in the skills relevant to that area, but not the other areas. Okay? And then, when a project needs somebody with a particular kind of skill, they get plugged into that project. Okay? Now, this allows a great deal of flexibility in your team because you can handle very hard problems. You have a lot of expertise. You have the ability to be very effective at solving problems, even complicated testing problems, because of that expertise. For example, there's a Lister and DeMarco figure in one of their books, I think it was Peopleware, where they said that the difference between the most effective person and the least effective person in terms of their effectiveness on a task would be a factor of 10. So in other words, the most effective person is 10 times more effective. The average person is about at the 2.5 point. So the most effective person would be 4 times as effective as the average person and 10 times more effective than the least effective person. So what we're doing here basically is building this team of experts that have this 10x effectiveness against these kinds of problems that might arise. So that sounds really good because you say, I want to have the most effective team, and this is going to allow me to have these really effective resources to plug into particular problems as I need them. The challenge here is that you tend to get some really extreme peaks and valleys in the workload for any given individual depending on what's going on a particular set of projects, including the point of actually having people double booked potentially or triple booked across projects. And that can then result in a challenge that you have to deal with as a manager, which is the person is doing their best, they're working hard and long hours, but none of the project managers that they're working with are happy, right? Because they all feel underserved by this person. The person feels overworked, but at the same time, everybody who's working with them on each of these projects feels underserved by this individual. So that's a challenge. It can be overcome, and in some cases it has to be overcome. When you have highly specialized application domains or technologies that require that the testers working on them be highly specialized, you really have no choice but to deal with this. But you do need to think about this. How am I going to handle this issue of the peaks and valleys of the workload, both across the different project teams and also within the test team, because that's going to create some morale issues if you've got one set of people who are working 60-hour weeks while other people are looking for things to do because no project needs their skills. Okay, in contrast to that, you have the generalist team approach to organizing, which is rather than trying to have the 10x effectiveness people, you want to have the 2.5x effectiveness people, right? You want everybody to have average level of skills across all of the skills that are needed in your testing. So everybody is generalist. And so when there's work to be done, I can move people around based purely on their availability, right? This is a theory here, of course. Achieving this in practice is a whole other story. But theoretically, if you had a perfectly generalized team, the skills levels were equal across all of the team members, you could move people around as the workload required. Which means that whatever the workload is, it's the same for everybody. Right? People are put onto a project, they stay on that project until that project doesn't need them anymore or until they're actively reassigned to some other project based on the consent of the different project teams. So it takes the test manager out of the position of getting stuck in the middle of resource contention. Somebody's assigned, they stay on the project, the project manager doesn't release them, then they're still on that project, no matter what's going on in other projects. Now, that sounds like it might work, but again, there are no solutions here. There are just partial solutions and pros and cons associated with each. So your issue here, of course, is one, on any given task, the testers are not as effective as they would be in a specialized team, right? Because they're not experts at everything, they're generalists. Two, there's the problem of what I refer to here as going native, which is the person's assigned to a project and they get so wound up in that project, so focused on that project that they forget that they're there to serve as an independent assessor of quality. And so they don't really do that. They start to identify more with the development team's goals and development manager's goals than with the larger goals of the test team. So that also has to be dealt with. And this is something, again, you see come up in sprint teams, in Scrum and other agile approaches, because people tend to get put onto not just a project, but they're put on a team and kept there for a long period of time. How do you keep them from losing that objectivity?